All right. So I've noticed, Jake, in the last couple weeks, women's wrestling has taken a pretty big spotlight. Other than NXT and the top women's talent in both companies, I think they need to reevaluate how they're booked. I'm not liking the way women's division is being done nowadays. What do you think?
Well, I mean, like in NXT, it's going to be my first go-to of what's been doing right and what's been going
Yeah,
well.
we're not including NXT with this
Right,
at all
and
because
so
they don't
when you
count.
go off there, and with the AEW women, there's definitely stuff there. The problem is they just rush through it too much. That's their problem with everything, though. They give, Tony Storm storyline that should have taken 6 months to a year. They do it in less than 6 weeks. Um, the women in WWE, I feel like they're trying to set up big stuff for WrestleMania, but I don't really know where they're going. At least on the Rhea side, I still think it's good to have Tiffany and Charlotte have that match, and Charlotte puts over Tiffany, and that makes Tiffany. But I was thinking they were going to really try to do a main event with the women for night one of WrestleMania, and I felt like that had to be Charlotte and Rhea. So I'm not really sure where they're going to go with that with Rhea. Um, like, what are your biggest specific complaints about stuff? That's interesting.
My main concern in all this, the top talents are fine, like Rhea,
Right.
Tiffany. That's all good. When you start getting to Chelsea and below, you got tag team champions why Chelsea's there. The other champion, what's her name? I forgot. That's not
Lyra
good.
Valkyria.
Yeah, it's not good that I can't remember the champions. They're not booked properly. There's no story. There's nothing with them, and people don't care. You could see that from the last time when they were on. The crowd was dead.
Yeah, no, Chelsea's gotten herself over, but the rest of anybody that she's going against, it really doesn't do much for her. And yeah, unfortunately, Valkyria, while she's talented, there's just not much there. I do kind of feel like they maybe thought Becky was going to come back sooner than she was, and that was why they gave it to her. Because it seems like Dakota Kai is more over than Lyra Valkyria, but it would have been a good Irish story to have Becky Lynch challenge for the Intercontinental title versus Lyra Valkyria, which they still might do for Mania, but I really don't know.
So what are they going to do? I mean, how do you spark interest in this? I mean, like I
I
said,
mean, you've got to give a storyline that actually has real meaning and something that people can sink their teeth into, which for the tag team division might work out with Jade depending on who they have attacked her, because they've been making it seem like it's Naomi almost too much. So I feel like that's the red herring, and it definitely wasn't Liv and Raquel. That wouldn't make any sense at all. That's the obvious red herring. If they wanted to turn Bianca heel, it would be a good time to do so. There'd be a lot for her to do in that respect. But she's also, one of the faces of the company. She's over, with herself and with what she's done. And I know she does a lot of like the Make-A-Wish stuff and appearances. Those are the words I was looking for, where she's on talk shows and stuff. But it would be kind of cool to see her go heel with the Street Profits now, and the three of them just wrecking shop on people would be fun. I definitely think it's the weak point in Triple H's booking, but it's also one of those things that there really is only so much television time that they can devote to all of this stuff.
and that's going to lead me in the direction that a lot of people have mentioned. Do you think they go with a woman's show?
I mean, I could see them doing it. I definitely think there'd be an audience for it television wise. What do you do with it though? Like, I don't think you could. I don't think it would work touring wise unless they were like booking it with SmackDown or like with Raw. So like Raw, and then they did, they taped it beforehand. But then taped shows don't work in this day and age. So you almost have to do it from the Performance Center on Wednesdays or Thursdays, and they wouldn't want to do it on Thursdays because they're not going to try to compete with TNA, which leaves Wednesday, which would be very, very interesting, especially if they were on actual television and they could compete for ratings.
It's interesting. It's very interesting to me.
It really is. It's one of those things, though, that it always is going to come back down to the storylines for it. I know people don't think Jade's a good wrestler, and a lot of people don't like women's wrestling or whatever. But as we've seen, when the stories are good, like Liv and Rhea was a great storyline all summer. Like, it was keeping people interesting. It was getting good segments. They had great promo battles because it had a personal element to it. That's what was it? sign over Jerry Jarrett's desk of, personal issues draw money. That's what it is. And I feel like one of the problems that wrestling always has and always has had is, and even with Rhea and Liv, it was fighting over a guy. They need to get more storylines that are just centralized on them, which could happen for the belts and having those different mid-card titles, but you've got to have something that people can connect with. I mean, that's why Chelsea's over, because she's gotten herself over because she's made a connection with the fans. Yeah. And that's always what it comes down to.
And didn't they have her lose in that tag team match? Or am I mistaken there?
I think they did.
Yeah.
That's the other problem. Is it doesn't stick in. It doesn't stick. Their storylines don't hit as hard.
That's the problem.
I think, I mean, as far as I can tell, at least with Chelsea, I feel like that's going to lead to her and Piper breaking up, which will be entertaining. But there's just not as much there. Like, there's not as much.
Yeah, do people care?
Stories. Yeah. I think they would. I think they definitely would, because, I mean, obviously somebody like Rhea is over. I mean, I was there live when Tiffany cashed in the Money in the Bank, and the people popped. Like, I've been to no less than 20 shows at that specific arena, and that was probably the loudest I've ever heard. Maybe some of the pay-per-views I've been to are a little bit more, but that was definitely like a moment. So they've got people there. It's just you've got to get good storylines for them. And I feel like Tiffany versus Charlotte that should be good. Like that, because people don't like Charlotte, it will get Tiffany over as a baby face. But you've got to make it work.
Yeah, there's some work to be done. I agree.
Yeah. I think it's really going to come down to having something at the heart of the story that people can connect with, which if they do, great. But it's also, I mean, there's just so much going on with every storyline right now in the main division. So, yeah, I don't know what to do about it.
It's an interesting problem to have, yeah.
Right. I was going to say, at least it's not the worst case. And, I mean, maybe doing some of the stuff with TNA where maybe some of the folks that aren't quite stars on NXT can go over there and do more work or work with Evolve, and then people can not so much step down to NXT, but at least get more TV time. We've seen people go down there, kind of get to reinvent themselves, and then go back to the main roster.
Right. Sounds good. It.
No, interesting. I like it.
All right. What do you guys all think out there? Comment below. Let us know.
Please comment. We'll read them on the air on our next shows.